Today we're going to make one of these bracelet cuffs with the wire wrapped crystals. I've chosen 4 amethyst crystal points for these ones here, just raw chunks. They're so cute and chunky and look great as a statement piece or just part of your bracelet stack. I've got a bracelet blank here that's about 6 millimeters wide and 15 centimeters long. I find these ones are best just because they're flat, so the crystals can sit on there well. And I've got 4 crystals here. They're crystal points. These ones here are about 1.5 to 2 centimeters long. We also use our 20 gauge dead soft silver wire. For this wrap here, I use about 50 inches. Just measuring that 50 inches out and being careful with your wire not to bend it. Now I find the hardest thing about this design is actually getting your wrap in the center of your bracelet. I just start by laying my little crystals out in the design that I want them to sit on the bracelet cuff. So some of them have like an imperfection on one side, or they sort of sit together better. So just sit them down how you want them. And then just grabbing your little cuff there, you want to see where the actual center is, and then just make a little mark on each side so that you can work out where your crystals are going to be, and that means you can work out where you're going to start your wire wrap on each side. So I just pop a little mark there on each side with pen or pencil, something like that, and work out exactly where the crystals are going to be. That way you know where you can start your wire wrap. So on one end of our wire there, I just make a little bend in the wire. So as you can see here on this one, we wrap a little bit of the wire on each end as well. So that's basically what we're going to do. If you can see my little mark there on each side, I just want to start about 1 centimeter or 1.5 centimeters down from that little mark that I've made. I just start underneath by tucking that little piece of wire under. So it's pointed backwards so that we can wrap that wire on top of it. And I just hold on to it with my pliers. I just find that's a bit easier. And then I just start by wrapping my wire around the cuff and going over the top of the end of our wire there. So that's just going to secure it in place. I like to go around quite a few times, and then I sort of overlap the wire as well in a crisscross direction as well. So just crisscrossing it over a couple of times. For my design, I like to do that because it's crisscrossed over the top of the crystals as well, so I just find it looks quite cool. I've sort of put about 1 centimeter there. You could do a little bit further, but you just want to make sure you don't use too much on one end and then you might not have enough for the other end. But once you've wire wrapped around your bracelet up to the point where you marked on there, then you can grab your first crystal. So we just hold that onto the cuff and wrap from one side to the other side over the crystal in a diagonal direction. So that's going to start to hold your crystal in place. I then go around the cuff once. So that sort of secures the crystal in that direction, but then you need to wrap the other way as well. So I then head across the other way in the other direction and pull it back to that point as well. And then I wrap around the cuff as well. One more time. So that should be secured on there. You want to make sure it's pulled really nice and tight. And that should secure that crystal on, as long as it's got one in each direction, sitting like an X over the top. But then you can just grab your next crystal and we're going to do the same thing again. So trying to just have that crystal on the same way that you had it. Then we're just going to hold it on there and then do the same thing. So wrapping that wire around in the diagonal direction and then around your cuff. Then just in the diagonal direction the other way. So in that diagonal direction and then back to that point and then go around the cuff again. So it's just all pulling nice and tight and making sure that those crystals are on there really nice and secure. Onto the next crystal, same thing again in that diagonal direction. Really nice and tight. Over the crystal. And then around the cuff. And then in the diagonal direction. And back to that point and then around the cuff again. So I just find this is the best way to keep it all secure. Onto the last crystal there. So you should find that that last crystal sort of meets up with that mark. It doesn't have to be exact to the millimeter, but just gives you an idea, and that's the easiest way to keep it in the center. Again, with that last crystal, doing your same design work in the diagonal directions over your crystal and then wrapping it around the cuff as well to make sure it's secured in between each crystal. Just checking that each crystal is actually secure and in place and that your crystal design part is in the middle of your cuff. Then you can just start wrapping this other end. And we're just going to wrap it about the same as what you did on the other end. So I just wrapped 1 sort of centimetre or so flat, and then I just do a bit of a crisscross design on the top. Just making sure that it's going to look even with that other end. I had a little bit of wire left over. I probably could have done a little bit further, a little bit longer on the first side, but it's much better to have too much than not enough. So I just snipped that tail off, and then we just want to try and work this tail so it goes underneath at least 1 wraparound of wire. So I don't normally just put it under 1, but just gently working with it. You can sort of lift that last ring a little bit just to push that under and then work it down tight again. Just pulling it tight underneath and then working this piece around so it sits down nice and tight. You don't want any sharp pieces that might be poking out that they could dig into your skin. And I just cut that last little tail off. But you can see it's gone under, and then we just are going to tuck it down and make sure it's all just crimped down nice and tight. So then you can check over your whole design and just make sure it's all nice and tight and that those crystals are securely in place.